Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am thrilled that you are here today because we are talking about your future culture. So if you think about what your culture is now, what is your future culture and what do you want it to be? And today, our guest that we have with us today is Miao Zhao. Hi, Miao.
Hi, Sania. How are you?
So great to have you here. Let me tell everyone a little bit about you and then we'll dive right in. So I got to know Miao through a mutual friend, a good friend of both of ours, and I'm so delighted I've gotten to know her. She's an executive coach. She has worked in industry. She knows a ton about leadership. So she knows about the challenge of changing culture at a high level. Let me tell you a few more things. Miao has worked individually with over 1,000 senior executives and entrepreneurs on a one-to-one basis. That's huge. So I am in executive coaching. That's a huge number, just so you know. She's a trusted advisor to develop customized strengths-based solutions and to meet people's business challenges so people can achieve their ambitious objectives. Business-wise, Miao has worked most recently with the McKinsey Talent Network, coaching departing partners and senior executives in their career transitions. She used to be a client partner at Korn Ferry, where she placed senior executives globally, from Fortune 500 players to anybody that's in venture capital or private equity-backed portfolios. So we are thrilled that she is with us today. In addition to having worked for the McKinsey Talent Network and for Korn Ferry, Miao also has worked at Citi, at JP Morgan, and as an investment banker. She has run her own consulting business. So we've got a ton of knowledge, especially at senior levels. So if you are interested at the senior levels, how to change culture, throughout this program, keep giving us your questions. So hello, Miao. I'm thrilled to have you here. Hello.
Thank you for having me, Sania.
My first question to you is, what is a problem that you see senior leaders have, especially recently?
Yes, the problem I've seen more often is the culture adaptation. A lot of time in my previous job as the executive search partner, a client come to us, need a new leader. And if we know about it, most positions are filled within. When a company wants an outside leader, it's usually because they're facing tremendous challenge. Sometimes involves turnaround, new business growth, or re-engineer the whole business.
So basically what I'm hearing you say is, when in your work with executives, and especially bringing in new executives at a senior level, like at the CEO or other senior level, often the reason that a company wants to bring in the senior executive is because they need some kind of transformation. Is that right?
Well, that's most likely the case. Of course, there are natural replacements, or, company has their own succession plan, but usually when they have urgency and needs to bring outside senior leaders, it means the organization facing some challenge to change.
Okay, so let's say an organization is facing some challenge to change. What are some of those obstacles that it's facing?
Usually, they need to do something they either don't have capability to do or they haven't done before, but they want to get there. So they have a clear picture where they want to be, they just haven't gone there yet. And ideally, they want someone who's a proven player, winner, to lead them there.
And what is it that they should be looking for if they're looking for somebody who is good at changing culture or other transitions like this?
Well, like in any talents, they're looking for brilliant minds. They're looking for like mind who share their vision and mission and who resonate with their values. But they're also looking for someone who are already ahead of them, who's been there, done that somewhat of what they want to do, to have elements of the perceived culture they want to have.
So let's say you have helped a company bring on a strong senior leader, a CEO or senior leader, and that leader is going to change culture. What are some of the ways that the leader should be moving towards the future culture?
Well, before we do that, shall I just address a challenge for leaders to come into this role?
Yes, when they come to what is a challenge that they have when they come here? Yes, please let us know.
Yeah, because a lot of time, these leaders were expected to both come up with the new strategy and execute it. It's an ideal one stone hits two birds scenario. However, because of the changing environment and changing culture, sometimes it even involves changing industry. The transition is actually huge, especially when it involves into going into a very complex matrix global organization with multiple stakeholders who might not share the same common theme or message.
Okay.
So it'll most likely sometimes you have a well-rounded senior executive who can have both organization savviness and business savviness to make it happen, to bring everyone together on the same page to go from there. In some cases, the leader are sort of biased. They're more biased toward the intellectual challenge and problem-solving part rather than having the strong muscle to handle the organization savviness and adaptability. So their challenge, their success means they need to adapt to the current culture first before they can spearhead to the future culture.
That's really interesting. I haven't heard other people say this. So you're saying if a senior leader comes in, they really need to kind of get grounded in the current culture first.
That's how they gain credibility and trust. And that's how they get grounded to make sure they're one of the family. You're one of the current family before you can bring the whole family to a new picture.
That absolutely makes sense. And I can absolutely see senior leaders not wanting to do this. Because if you're a senior leader, you're ambitious, you're likely an A-type, you want to get things done. You have execution high, as well as strategy. So how is it, let me ask this. How long do they need to get to know the culture before they can start to change the culture?
You know, Sanya, that's $1 million question, because ideally we want to have a long enough runway to make sure the senior leader can get a successful grounding. But mostly in reality, we always talk about 90 days plan. But in reality, sometimes they only have a couple of weeks, if not days, to make it happen. So it's the reality check that the leader came in and realized you brought me in to enter a race car competition to be the champion. But then I just realized I need to help you to build the racetrack first.
Wow. Okay.
Sometimes it takes both paving the road while running the race car simultaneously. And if that doesn't go well enough, you can imagine he can flip and he might never have chance to show how brilliant a race car competitor he is because the road is never ready.
I can absolutely see that. Yeah. So step one, get embedded into the current culture.
Mm-hmm.
What's step two?
Well, just to illustrate a little bit, it's very frustrating and could be a huge dilemma because they're brought in to break the current culture. So they have all the DNAs, doesn't really belong to this culture. So first they need to transform themselves to adapt to this culture, to understand it before they can take the essence and best out of this culture and shape it to the next one. And a lot of executives fails exactly because of that. And actually, most executives fail in the first 3 months, if not the first 1 or 3 years in their new leadership role because of this.
That makes sense. Okay, so let's say an executive is successful at that and has credibility, and whether it's in 2 weeks or the first 90 days, and has embedded him or herself into the current culture. What should they do next?
You know, you actually reminded me of a perfect scenario, which turned out to be arguably the biggest disaster in the industry.
Tell us about it.
And some people might know about the J.C. Penney story, where they brought in the Apple miracle maker, Ron Johnson, who used to run successfully the miraculous, profitable Apple store. And 8 years ago, exactly now, and this Ron was brought into JCPenney to turn around their declining business. And he had the luxury to be supported by senior leader, by the board, to do everything he wants to do. And the whole company supports him. So in a couple of weeks, he come in, throw away the old corporate culture, basically literally ask everyone to throw away what old JCPenney logo is, and start replacing most of the critical senior leaders with outsiders. And he virtually let go 19,000 employees to support his ambitious strategic plan execution. And he borrowed the successful Apple formula to apply to JCPenney. And what happens is, in just a year after he's in the role, the sales declined by $4 billion. And the stock price almost cut in half from $32 to $18. And 16 months later, he was fired by the same board.
Painful.
And this is what JCPenney was imagining they want. They want to go digital. They want to really trendy, successful business to attract new customers. But in this process, they failed to attract the new customers they desperately need. And they also lost their core customers as well as their employees.
Yeah, not a good story. Very sad. Yeah.
Right.
So that's an example of trying to do too much too fast. And,
exactly.
And also, yeah, so a few problems. Okay. But then suppose we've got an executive who is paying attention and who has come in and has understood and embedded themselves into the current culture. What should they do next?
Beautiful. So we're really trying to explore a middle ground where we don't have the luxury to do it too slow and we'll run out of the steam while paving the road, or we don't want to run the race car before the road is ready. Mm-hmm. So where's the middle ground?
Okay.
And basically how to adapt to a culture you're not used to, mm-hmm. while still keeping your own identity. So that I want to just bring in a recent client case I have. This is a very relevant example to illustrate. She's a very seasoned investment partner brought into a global consulting firm where they need her expertise, but she doesn't know how they do business. She doesn't have the craft to do their core business. So ideally, by bringing her in, the firm can expand their business offering, reach new customers, and cross-sell with their core business to penetrate the market. Yeah. It's a very nice design. Mm-hmm. And usually, this is exactly why you bring in new blood to grow your business. However, she hit the reality that most partners doesn't know why she's there. They couldn't appreciate her strength, and they constantly see her shortcoming that you don't know our business. And she's the same way toward them. She doesn't get them. So she is very entrepreneurial, and she buy in the company culture and the mission and value. So she just ended up being a sole contributor, like creating her blue ocean and develop her clients and execute her projects without partnering with any partners like the firm expected her to. Mm-hmm. And likewise, other partners never want to involve her. Even when they have client needs, she can help to serve. She has expertise to offer because they don't have this trust and they never got to work with each other. Mm-hmm. So 2 years down the road, although she's very successful at not only meeting her target, but exceeding it, she eventually ran out of steam. She felt alienated, isolated, and she's just considering taking off.
Yeah, she's just working on her own and not in collaboration with other partners from what you're describing. Okay.
Exactly. But given this is a wonderful platform and she's a very driven top A player, she can make it work. But she can only make it work for so long before she got so frustrated, she wants out.
Yeah.
So that's the point we started talking and we started to figure out what we can do. And obviously, there's a huge discrepancy between the understanding and mindset. And they don't trust each other, they don't understand each other, they don't work with each other.
Yeah.
And they're losing clients. And so what we start from her is really just start coming back to her core and clarify her value, her personal mission and purpose, who you are and why you're here.
Wonderful. In fact, I will actually ask right now, I'll type a question in: values and personal purpose. So for those of us who are with us right now, would you please type into the chat, what are some of your values and some of your personal purpose that you think, if you were brought in as a CEO to a company, that you think you could contribute or share with the company? Your values or your personal purpose. Just give us a few snippets so we have a sense of what yours are as we're continuing to speak with Miao. Okay, great. So I understand this so far. Understand the current culture and embed yourself in it. Don't run the race car before the road is ready. So really build that trust and build that road. What else? And I also ask, because in the remaining about 3 to 4 minutes of us getting our content in before we bring people in for questioning, what do we really want to make sure people know as best practices?
Yes, and I want to highlight 3 tools and 3 best practices we tried after we set the foundation.
Oh, cool.
So the first one is blameless discernment. One of the reasons for mistrust is people judge each other, and people have live in their own world and think other people live in their world. So by having blameless discernment, we just recognize what the current situation is without pointing fingers. But then go back to your core and take what you believe, take bold action to take risk and show people your strength, show them who you really are. So she started to speak out in key meetings to agree to disagree. And in her surprise, she won respect rather than invite further hostility and judgment.
And when you say discernment, what do you mean by that?
It means open to different opinion without judgment.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So develop blameless discernment in how you interact with others. Great. Okay.
And how you assess the current situation.
Yeah.
Without interpretation, without judgment.
That's super thoughtful. Okay. Okay.
And after that, we can go into empathy, which is really, put yourself in other people's shoes and try to see their point, even if it's just 10% right. Try to see their rightness and also assuming their positive intent, even though you totally don't see eye to eye to each other. And let them do that to you by role modeling, doing that to them first.
Makes sense. Okay, great. So she would come in with blameless discernment and then move on to empathy and assuming positive intent. Okay.
Yeah. And finally, just explore with the client why they want to terminate the contract, what happened, what their reason rather than your assumption. Explore with other partner why they're indifferent with you. What's their reason rather than what your assumed reason. And from there, she actually came a lot of surprise that things are not the way she used to think for a couple of years. So in 2 months, we made a lot of action happen and changes happen that she could have made in the past 2 years.
That's so great. Okay, so Miao, I'm going to summarize some of the things I'm saying, and then I'll ask you to fill in what I may have missed. So you and I have been talking about your future culture. So if you are at a company, especially at a senior level, although I'll ask you this in the questions, whether you can do it in smaller groups, but if you're at a company, you want to structure your future culture, first you have one set of actions, and then you have these 3 tools that you've proposed. So your first set of actions are really understanding and embedding yourself into the current culture. Then it's not running that race car before the road is ready. So really building the culture of trust and understanding as you're getting ready to move over to the new culture. So these 2 are preparatory work. And then you're saying, here are 3 tools that you can use right away to move forward to your future culture. Have an attitude, a non-judgmental attitude of blameless discernment. Then really express that empathy and assumption of positive intent. And finally, explore differences that you might even be surprised by.
Exactly.
So what have I missed, or what else would you add to that structure? That seems really thorough to me. I'm really glad you're sharing it with us. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Sanya. And what that ultimately means is work with your colleague to go to the battlefield together on the same side rather than have a big fight before you face the world. And that takes trust, respect, and love. And if you don't get that, show it to others first. And eventually it will be mutual. It will be all in the system, but it has to start somewhere, and better start from you.
Trust, respect, and love. It's so refreshing to hear you, who has worked with thousands of executives at really senior level, actually use the word love.
Actually, that's what makes a lot of senior leaders happy and fulfilled. They really have passion in their business, in their people, and in their mission.
Yeah.
That's what eventually get them to win, and win with ease and flow.
Yes, winning with ease and flow.
Yeah.
Let me start with asking the questions. And for all of us, all of you who are with us today, please feel free to type in your questions into the comments for Miao. Miao, my question is, this sounds, so let's say I'm watching this and I'm not a CEO of a company. And let's say I want to make changes in my group where I'm going to make up some numbers, where I have 5 direct reports and overall 13 people in my group, in my entire group. But I want a slightly different culture. I'll even be more specific. I want a more collaborative culture, and I'd also like the culture to be thinking more strategically and long term. So we're not just minute, but we're moving towards the future. How can I use what you've just told me, even those 3 steps, to move towards a future culture in my own group? And even can I, if the overall company culture is different? So I've sort of given a lot to you. Please go ahead.
Sure. Sanya, I'm a firm believer, where there's a will, there's a way. As long as we want, and we want it enough, it's going to happen. And this is how. And one of my favorite games to play to bridge the gap is yes and.
Yeah.
Listen what the other people are saying. No matter you agree or not, try to find that 20% right. And then take from there to build on your input. Only by sitting on the same common ground with them, you win the right for them to listen to you.
So do you mean, if I'm a manager of a group and I have 5 direct reports, that if I want to move the culture towards a more collaborative direction, first I should listen to my, let's say, 5 individual team members and find out from them their thoughts and add yes and as a way of moving towards that more collaborative culture. Is that correct?
Exactly. Just be open with blameless discernment to hear from them. What do you think works and what do you think doesn't work to get where we want to go? And that's the way, ultimate way of leadership, to lead by following.
To lead by following. What you're saying sounds so compact and doable. that it sounds manageable. So you actually didn't even say, okay, if you're leading this group of 5, how are you practicing blameless discernment? And in what ways are you showing empathy? And how are you exploring differences? You're actually saying, let's talk on a real human to human level. And how are you being open? How are you playing yes and? How are you exploring what other people want and meshing that with what you'd like to have?
Yes, Sanya, a great leader is also a curious leader. He really cares to explore what make it right from us, not by borrowing any other's opinion or ideas. The wisdom are all here. It's up to the great leader to find out. And all he needs to do is to listen, really listen intently, and listen with openness and respect.
Thank you so much, Miao. That's really nice. We started with broad picture, and if it's a big company, it needs a big transformation or at a very senior level, and now we're talking individually what people can do. That sounds wonderful. I have two ending questions for you. One is, what would you like people to take away today from everything that we've discussed about people's future culture?
What about the future culture is you need to picture what that future culture is. And you really want to live in it. And then the next step is figure out how to. But that what is the first step.
Yeah. So you almost have to go and sit under a tree like a Buddha and sort of check in, like, what do I want the future culture of this group or business or my own family to be?
Or you don't have to recreate the wheel. There are enough best practices and role models and good examples around. You can just pick and choose, make it your own, do the a la carte way, just like a great chef. Create your own recipe doesn't mean you need to create every single thing from scratch by sitting under the tree like Newton. There's already a Newton having apple drop on his head. We can just start from the shoulder of the giants. There are enough giants around in the world.
Awesome. Awesome. And my concluding question, which is, if you could snap your fingers and almost everyone in the world were to start to take an action, some action, what would you want that to be?
Start from myself. Be the kind of person I want everyone to be, and then just show them, they will follow.
I had a really good example of this when I started doing executive coaching full-time back over a decade ago. I was really into physical exercise. And so I felt like I was being the best version of myself when I was also working with people on whatever their situations were. And it feels amazing when that's aligned. It's not always aligned, but when that's aligned, I know what you're talking about.
And then it's easy. You don't even need to think because everyone's doing that. Yeah. You're just in this momentum, like the birds flying in the ship.
Yeah, that letter. Yeah.
Yeah. So you really need to focus on your premium unique value add than taking care of that road paving.
Yes.
You need to make the road alone.
Really start with yourself and start demonstrating those things that you want in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Action speaks louder and role model speaks even loudest.
Thank you so much, Miao Cao. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Sanya. It's really fun to discuss these really highly important, but also topics I'm passionate about too.
I'm delighted because you've given us lots of different new ways to think about it. Thank you.
Glad to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We are here every day, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific. All the best and see you again tomorrow. Thank you.